It's John Bowden from Rock History Book, and our entire interview with Stewart Copeland. It was a fun chat. You could tell he was excited. We were getting into a groove, and that doesn't always happen in interviews. But with this one, it's easy to tell that it was going well. He's one of my favorite drummers, and that was a good thing. He has a brand new book called Stewart Copeland's Police Diaries. You'll see it pop up throughout this interview. Links in the description where you could pick it up. Of course, it chronicles the early days of the Police, his early bands, relationships, the good and bad with Sting and Andy Summers. We talk about songwriting and how Sting was spurred on to start writing his own songs, how they met, everything in between. Here's Stewart Copeland on Rock History Book. Enjoy. Good day, sir.
Bon, how you doing? Ah, very nice. Cool looking book.
Holy snapping turtles. I so enjoyed this.
Excellent, excellent.
You know, from a guy who keeps a journal and have always thought about getting rid of the journals, of going, oh, yeah, I don't want to keep this stuff.
Well, even though sometimes you write things, not because you want anybody ever, even yourself, to ever see it again, just the act of writing is very cathartic, very healing, very, whenever I'm wound up just writing something, anything, gibberish, just helps. And then 40, 50 years later, I come back and I see it, and all that angst has comedic value.
Well, I mean, you've got the pages there. That's the thing. I mean, the fact that I'm actually looking at the pages in your handwriting. By the way, how far back does that go? I mean,
it goes back to when I was 15 in boarding school.
You have them?
Then it was really, then it was really random. It wasn't on this day that happened. It was just every now and then when I was, torn up and blue, I'd just start writing in these little books. And it made no sense at all. And then gradually it started to make some kind of sense. And then during the band years, I kept not so much a journal. Well, I don't know what you'd call it. It was just every day. What did we get paid? How many people attended? How well we played? How much I paid for the truck? And all that kind of tour manager stuff. Manager stuff. And but then there were the other writings, which were the continuation of the high school stuff, which was just, grievance nurturing, crackpot schemes, wild delusions. And like I say, that stuff now, angstful as it was back then, is kind of comedic now.
When did you ever stop?
Yes.
Writing? When?
When I got a movie camera. And I kept date sheets. It's a strange thing. And we all got cameras. I got a movie camera, and Sting and Andy both got cameras. And it was because we were having such an exotic adventure. The feeling was, I want to scrape it off and put it in my suitcase and play with it later. And I guess this is what I'm doing, is playing with it later.
You can't all experience it at that time. You can't. It's too much.
Yeah, there's so much going on. I just want to grab it and absorb it later. And, that's why when we did our world tour, everybody had cameras, out of every portal. I just don't throw things away. I mean, I've still got my first guitar. I've still got everything. Actually, I did give my first drum set to somebody because drums are bulky.
What's one of your drum sets on that buy and sell store or whatever that was? Someone bought one of your old drum sets. Didn't you make an appearance?
Oh, yeah, I did. The drum sets, strangely, I'm attached emotionally to my guitars, my daddy's trumpet. I've got also the world's largest collection of the cheapest instruments money can buy. I'm an eBay fanatic. I love instruments. But the drums, somehow, I just bang them. I don't even set them up. I don't tear them down. They get torn apart by the crew every night, and so they take up a lot of space as well. And so rather than just having them, I actually offered them to my son. I gave them to my son and he auctioned them. But what I first said to Jordan, my son, you're the musician of all my 7 children, and I think you should be the custodian of the drum. And he writes back to me saying, Dad, my heart is heavy with joy at this great honor. uh, I, I, I haven't got that much space here with my 2 kids and all my own musical gear, and a drum set I kind of don't need.
Wow. By the way, speaking of drum sets, you still have, I asked, our subscribers questions for Stewart, and one guy said, does he still drive around LA in a minivan?
No, I never did.
See, the internet.
Yeah. I mean, I used to hire trucks in London to pick up our gear, but I don't know. I used to have I do have an SUV. And the reason I was a Jeep man for decades. This is my, some guy pulls up next to me in their Lamborghini. Screw you! I got my Jeep.
You never splurged with the car?
No, not so much. Okay, I've got a fancy car now, but it's an SUV, and the reason it's an SUV is because I still entertain this small idea in the back of my mind that I want to might want to load up my drums and take them over to Stanley's place or something. And that's never going to happen. For one thing, I already gave Stanley a drum set, which he's got up there. I ain't packing my drums nowhere. That's something I've earned in my life. I have paid my dues. I ain't ever going to set up a drum set. I might consider adjusting the hi-hat a little. But I'll play with my guitars all day. I mean, I'll take the strings off, I'll polish them, I'll obsess over the pickup. Should the pickup be a little higher, a little lower? And because guitar, you can sleep with your guitar. You can't sleep with a drum set.
Speaking of your diaries, Simon Phillips, last time I talked to Simon, I said, I heard a rumor that you're writing a book. He says, he kept a log of all his sessions, and that's how he does it. So he can remember it. So sometimes, if you write a couple of lines from a dream,
it all comes back.
It all comes back. By the way, I saw you guys in 1980 with XTC. I always wanted to tell you this. Edmonton, you did a signing before the show. I got into an accident on the way to the signing. After the concert, 73 Camaro. After the concert, my then girlfriend, future wife, and now ex-wife, totaled the car. Then we saw the real police after. So there you go. Always want to tell you that.
A full night. Night. I do remember Edmonton because I remember the talk of the time was as we're flying into Edmonton, flying over there, you can literally see the city growing. That was not that I could out of the window of an airplane, but I mean that was the vibe of Edmonton at the time.
God, you remember that? Yeah, it was bustling. Curved Air.
Sonia.
Stewart Copeland was part of a well-known English prog band called Curved Air from 1975 to 76. Their lead singer was Sonia Christina, who ended up being Stewart's first wife. Yeah, what a force, huh?
Oh, yeah. And she was the star of the band, and we lived together, eventually had 3 kids together, and married. My current wife, I was very lucky in both of the women that I married. I'm very blessed in that regard. And my current wife has to look at the book, and there's Sonia, and they get along fine. That's
rare.
Well, we have 7 kids, of whom 3 are with Sonia. And Fiona's bonded with the kids, and dealing with the kids means dealing with, she's a hippie, and she's really easygoing and non-threatening, and they get along fine. But opening the book and seeing Sonia in her prime,
yeah, those are good pictures.
Yeah.
By the way, so you consider, when you're asked, I watched a lot of your interviews in the last couple of weeks, but so it's Mitch Mitchell for you? Is he the guy?
Totally. Yeah. And it's a strange thing that he eats everybody's lunch. all the others, Ginger Baker was up there, but he and Ginger Baker came before John Bonham, who was amazing, a mountain of power, energy, and everything like that. But Mitch Mitchell was not noticed because he had Jimi Hendrix in front of him. And it's an amazing thing. You listen to live records, you can hardly hear them, but on the albums, the drumming on there has not been surpassed, in my opinion. He's the Mozart of drums. He's the Joey Jordison of his day. He had more chops than anybody, and he changed the formula of how drums operate in a band. Before that, it was a backbeat, a supportive role. And when he came along with Jimi Hendrix, it was a lead instrument. Unlucky for his reputation and his legacy, he had Jimi Hendrix in front of him, so very few people noticed.
Well, you did get a chance to meet Ginger Baker, and he didn't take none of that happened.
No. I met him on the side of a polo. We played polo together in Hawaii, and he couldn't control his horses, but he could hit that ball. If he could get his horse anywhere near that ball, he was going to send that sucker 400 yards. And he called me young man.
He called you young man?
Yeah. Ginger could call me anything. Hey, you, listen, pal. Fine with me. It would be an honor to be addressed in such a way. Come over here. He played these drums right here.
He did?
And I had my cameras rolling. I've got on YouTube, if you look up Sacred Grove, you'll find Snoop Dogg at the Sacred Grove, Ginger Baker, and others who come over here and they jam right here, and they got cameras around the room, and everything in the room is wired is mic'd up, line checked. I open up a template, everything is in record. The entire room, every square foot of the room is in record, no matter who picks up an instrument or doesn't. So Ginger came over, and we sat and we did a little thing. He was on the drums. I was playing the percussion behind over there. I got 1 minute before he gets up and says, "Oh," like that. 20 minutes later, the paramedics arrive in an ambulance, and they're telling him, "Mr. Baker, we need to take you down to the hospital. This doesn't look good." Yes, off. I'm not going to in hospital. I got a gig tonight, And he chased them all away. And that's probably the last recording.
What was the toughest tune with the Police? Was there a song that stands out? No matter how it turned out, what was his toughest session?
Well, I guess by tough, none of it was difficult to play, but it was difficult to negotiate. And we now understand what the dynamic was, and there's, it's all good. And we understand now that as we grew, even we grew together. We learned so much from each other, and so much of my musical identity comes from Andy and Sting, as well as what I was born with. But the what we were born with part is different. And music, we realized later, has a different function in our lives. For Stingo, it's a beautiful, serene place that he can go to, that he can create. And it's a beautiful escape from the hurly-burly world. For me, I want to burn down the building. And for me, it's a celebration of everything that's noisy, loud, and fun. And that's why I bang. We realize now that clash of purpose is what made the Police what it was. And Andy is another whole agenda. He's a flash flood, that guy. So it was difficult for us to work together musically, but we were still very much bonded socially. At dinner, even after spending a day of screaming at each other, at dinner, we'd be telling jokes and, telling drummer jokes and bass player jokes and guitarist jokes, banter. And then we and it wasn't ego. It was just a matter of, we play in a band to express ourselves creatively, and we demand to do so. And that was a clash.
Is it still 1% for that reunion?
Diminishing.
No,
I
no.
never said 1%. I never, you know, see, all you listeners out there, this is how people get misquoted. I never said 1%. What I said was 0.00000001%.
Oh, that
See
hurts.
how this happens?
By the way, I loved Wonders of Life. Oh my God, Divine. I love that piece of music. That piece of
Oh,
music
great.
melts me. It melts me. There's
Oh,
this,
cool.
when you hear something, I know people forget you're a fan too, where you literally look at the speakers. That just melted me, that song.
Excellent. I'm glad you had that response. I mean, you know, there's more, and it's called Police Beyond Borders, where I did another album with Ricky
Yeah.
Cage, which is, well, I did, okay, two albums here. Um, Police Deranged Orchestra, which is the tour that I'm doing, and it's the big orchestral treatments of my screwed up arrangements of the songs with three soul sisters on the mic. That was a calculation I made, and I just discovered, wow, it's
Yeah.
like the Police sung by the Supremes,
Yeah.
which I didn't see that. I didn't expect that. It just blew my mind. And then now I've become a fan of R&B and all those vocal groups, the Ronettes, the Supremes, the Chiffons, all, oh man, I love it. Then Ricky says, after we'd won a couple of Grammys together, he says, let me play with that record of yours. Send me those backing tracks. And so he goes and puts the Soweto Gospel Choir on one track. The Mzansi Youth Choir, Chinese artists, Armenian, Indian, and, wait till you hear Every Breath You Take in Zulu with the full-on Xhosa clicks, every you like in Zulu. It's quite spine-tingling to hear, American singers, Black American singers, who in this one context we might refer to as African American, even though they're American, but to hear their voices blending with Africans, the cultural cycle of returning to Africa, this music, it
Yes.
gets my hair on end. Just to hear that happening is really quite beautiful. And it's interesting also that those African singers, they've been listening to some Aretha, they've heard some Diana Ross, but it's still fully African. But it's the culture has done a full circle in this case. It's pretty powerful.
People forget where rock and roll came from sometimes. I think that,
Yeah.
the origins
Well, it
of
didn't
rock
come
and roll.
from Africa, by the way. It didn't come from Africa. It came from America. It was the synthesis of European instruments, Yoruba culture, and others down in New Orleans. It evolved into the American side. Okay, you're going to have to put up with a rant here, which is that the most distinctive feature, American culture dominates the world. But the most distinctive feature of American culture is its music. We have movies, and we have, so does everybody else, writers and so on. We got Mark Twain, England's got Shakespeare, Russia's got Tolstoy. But it's our music that is absolutely distinct, and that they're all playing our music. And the distinctive feature of our music is the backbeat. And the backbeat, which defines all popular music from ragtime from the 40s and the 50s, all the way through to this current day in which we live, the backbeat. And the backbeat derives from an invention by one D.D. Chandler in 1898 in New Orleans. And he invented the bass drum pedal, which in my view, my humble view, is the most important invention of the 20th and 21st centuries, because it meant, first of all, the band leader could fire two guys, the bass drum guy and the cymbal guy. Kept the snare drum guy, because now the snare drum guy can do all three. He can use his foot to play the bass drum and the hi-hat, and he's got, one guy instead of three guys. That's an upgrade for the band leader. But for music in general, when one guy, instead of three guys grooving together and creating that polyrhythm of the bass drum and the answering backbeat, ba, da, boom, ba, doom, ba, that dialogue between the bass and the snare with the hi-hat providing, or the cymbal providing the 16th notes, the frizz on the top, now played by one guy, is much more centralized and organic in that beat of kick, snare, from jazz through funk, through pop, through everything. Kick, snare, the backbeat is this distinctive feature invented by Black culture. And in fact, my instrument was invented by a Black man, D.D. Chandler. The music I play on it derives from Black culture, which, even the Beatles are playing Black culture. Nashville, country and western, that beat derives from our Black brothers and sisters. And give me a soapbox and I'm going to stand up there and shout it from the mountaintops. The cultural debt that we owe to our Black brothers and sisters who created this most distinctive feature of our national identity.
Tell me about the meeting with Sting, where he said, I'm listening. Tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I saw, I had seen this punk phenomenon. I said, I want a do-it-yourself band. I was playing in a prog rock band, part of the system, which was the entropy was all winding down. And I needed a guitarist or bass player who could sing. I wanted a three-piece band. Either the guitarist or the bass player needs to sing. So one night off up in Newcastle, I see this jazz band, and the bass had this bass player, and he could sing, and I could see he's got a rather handsome amp. He's got an amp. He can play bass and sing, but I guess the decisive feature was the golden shaft of light, celestial light upon him, lighting up his magnificent brow. It was the charisma. That guy, it can be said that, success and fame did not swell his head. He was the Lion King from birth, okay? And just like out to here. And so sometime later, I called the journalist who had taken us to see that, and I'm telling, there's this new thing in London. It's called punk. It's this cool thing. Suddenly the temperature drops 30 degrees. Punk? Because for any professional in the music industry, punk was the enemy, the barbarians at the gate, destroying everything that is good. And so he refused to give me the number. No. And so I hang up and I'm walking around the circles, and I came up with a much more persuasive argument, which I was going to try. And the argument was basically, give me his fucking number. So I called him up with this persuasive argument, but he didn't answer. His girlfriend did. And I said, hi, it's Stewart from Curved Air. And Curved Air, Phil's such a fan of. Is there anything I can do to help? Well, I'm looking for that bass player, the Sting guy. Half a tick. And I can hear her walking off to get the phone book and come out. Okay, here it is. 024-371-989. That's still his number, by the way. You can call him up on that number. And 2 minutes later, I hear that voice with which we are all now so familiar, that husky voice, and he's going, keep talking. Strange how singers are really unmusical when they talk. And two things. First of all, the first thing I said to him was, hi, I'm in London. I've got it all going on here. I'm forming a band. It's looking great. We're going to conquer the world, and yada, 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 yap, yap, yap. But here's the thing. I'm just interested in you, not your band. And he said, keep talking. Okay, I got a free roving agent here. That's good. But it also defined the next 2 years of our relationship. I had to keep talking. I had to keep it. We got rehearsals coming up. We got a photo session. We got an interview with Melody Maker. It's all going on. I'm booking dates, and I had to keep talking, keep it going, because as soon as Sting got down to London, everybody was after. I mean, it was obvious, but the miracle is that we stuck together, because soon after that, I get a call in my London apartment, which is this 2-story Mayfair apartment. Long story, it's in the book, what I was doing in this vampire Lestats style accommodation. And he comes up and he's looking around at this incredible place. And he called me from the street downstairs. Hi, I'm here in London, downstairs. Come on up. And I put a bass into his hands, and we jammed, and it was the holy grail. It was obvious that this is the right company. This works. We went and did things that I'd never thought of before, that he'd never thought, and he's a complete stranger. But the music, the riff, the groove, the pocket was just there. So we starved for the next year and a half. And I told him I had songs, which kind of I did. They were crap songs that I wrote, basically bass lines with yelling. And the miracle is that he stuck with it because he's a serious musician. Music is really important to him. And yet somehow our personal bond, that groove that we had as a rhythm section, held on to him because we didn't have Roxanne. We didn't have Message in a Bottle. He hadn't started writing songs yet. And we weren't getting anywhere until we ran into Andy Summers at a session. We were the hot rhythm section. And at one of our sessions, we ran into this guitarist who was like way above us. He was this triple scale guitarist, just like, legendary, played with everybody. And driving home from the session that night, Stingo's going, his musicality is seething. He'd been playing this pretend punk band, playing at all these shitty clubs, getting yelled at, but at least we felt we were a part of a vibrant scene. But that music thing, oh my God, we just had spent a day playing actual music. And I'm humoring him. Yeah, you're right. We can never afford him, in a million years. Why would he, join this band? We're going nowhere. I didn't say that. Then I remember him saying, one of the things he said was, Stewart, our guitarist, Henry, he's crap. I mean, you're a better guitarist than he is. And while his tirade, he's continuing on, but I'm not listening anymore because I'm thinking, really? Wow. Really? This unexpected accolade kind of stopped me. Wow. Anyhow, long story short, Andy also was thinking, I need those two guys. And he had done enough sessions where he was a sideman. He wanted to be on the album cover. He wanted to be a part of the creative process, to be in the band, not a hired gun, And for some reason, he chose Andy and I, Sting and I, with this fake punk band going nowhere. But he insisted on joining. And I tried to talk him out. I said, dude, we haven't got any management. That's me on the phone. We haven't got a record company. That's me on the phone selling records to stores in Birmingham and Newcastle. We have got roadies. That's you. But he persevered and he stuck with it. And Andy discovered us. And as soon as Andy joined the band and he had that musical sophistication, that harmonic knowledge, chords and everything like that, as soon as Sting heard that, his ears pricked up. He said, okay, I'm going to write some songs now. And he did. And one by one, Roxanne, So Lonely, Born in the 50s, these songs came in. Each one came in. One of our crap songs went out. I never noticed because every song that came in, yes, let's play that. Yeah. Yes. And that's how we became a real group.
Thank you. I know you got to get to your next man to man. Thank you for making a difference in my life. I got to tell you.
Man to many men and women, thanks for making my life.
Okay, go to the next one. Thanks, man.
Okay, take care now.
Take care. Bye.
His brand new book is called Stewart Copeland's Police Diaries. As I've mentioned before, it's kind of cool. There's actually diary pieces in the book. Oh, there's his journal again. You can pick it up via the links in the description. Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. There are links at the very top of the channel where you can make a donation. If you feel like you want to support the channel, you can join our Patreon, get early access to all our videos. So if you're a member, you always get early access to all the interviews, and there's so much coming up that we're going to present to you. Remember, like our videos, share them on social media, and of course, subscribe. I'm John Bowden. Take care of yourself.